The research vessel Horizon moved quietly through space. Its job was to map new areas at the edge of where humans had been before. Dr. Ji-woo Kim looked at her screen with a smile. She had wanted for years to explore this far from Earth. Captain Park, I see something strange at coordinates 227 to 84,119, said Lieutenant Taeho, who watched the ship's sensors. Captain Dahyun Park walked to the main screen. Let's see it closer. On the screen appeared a black ship unlike any they had seen before. Its surface shimmered with colors that showed it was far more advanced than Earth ships. We need to follow first contact rules, said Captain Park calmly. Open all channels and send our greeting message. Science Officer Yun Jae-lee touched her control panel. Sending the message now, Captain. Everyone waited quietly. Sir, said Lieutenant Taeho with fear in his voice. They're turning on their weapons. Before Captain Park could say anything, a purple beam shot from the alien ship. The Horizon shook as alarms sounded. Everyone hold on. Captain Park started to say, but his words stopped when a second beam covered the ship in crackling light. Je-woo woke up later strapped to a cold metal table. Tall creatures with hard outer shells moved around her. One bent down close, its many eyes blinking one after another as it made clicking sounds to the others. Ji-woo lost track of time as the aliens, who she learned were called the Vrek, did painful tests on her and the crew. She watched in horror as her friends died one by one from what the aliens called research. During a rare moment when no Vrek were watching, Ji-woo used her last bit of strength to crawl to the emergency signal console. With shaking hands, she turned on the ship's recording system. This is Dr. Ji-woo Kim from the UES Horizon she said quietly, with blood coming from her mouth. We met aliens who attacked us without reason after our peaceful greeting. They have been doing terrible experiments on us. I think I'm the last one alive. She took a difficult breath. Earth needs to know what happened. These beings see us as just test animals. They call themselves the Vrek. The console light turned green as the message started its long trip to Earth. On the other side of the ship, Senior Engineer Gae-hun was slowly regaining consciousness in a damaged section the Vrek hadn't fully searched. The explosion had thrown him into a maintenance shaft when the aliens first attacked. His right leg was badly broken, and dried blood covered the side of his face. With engineering training that had become second nature, Jae-hun assessed his situation. The section was running on emergency power, and the Vrek seemed unaware anyone was alive here. Using a broken pipe as a crutch, he painfully made his way to a systems terminal. Computer, status report, he whispered. The screen flickered. Main systems offline. Ship under unknown control. Life support at 22% capacity in this section. Jae-hun closed his eyes briefly. Show me internal sensors. What he saw made him sick. The Vrek were methodically taking the ship apart, section by section. Worse, in what appeared to be the medical bay, his crewmates were being subjected to horrific procedures. He spotted Ji-woo on one screen, now being returned to a cell after sending her message. She was alive, but barely. I need to do something, Gae-hun muttered. He couldn't fight the Vrek directly. Not in his condition, not against so many. But maybe he could help in another way. Using his engineering access codes, Jae-hun began rerouting power to strengthen Ji-woo's distress signal. He also started a background program to collect data on the Vrek ship, their technology, weapon systems, and what appeared to be biological information. Hours passed as Gae-hun worked. Twice he had to hide as Vrek search parties came near his section, their chittering sound sending chills down his spine. In her cell, Ji-woo curled into a corner, trying to preserve body heat. She had no way of knowing if her message had even left the ship. The cell door slid open, and a Vrek researcher entered. This one had markings she hadn't seen before, perhaps a higher rank. It approached with what looked like a neural scanner. Ji-woo tried to back away, but there was nowhere to go. Please, she whispered, knowing they couldn't, or wouldn't, understand. "We meant no harm." The Vrek tilted its head, studying her with compound eyes. Then it made a series of clicks that the translation device on its chest converted to rough human speech. Fascinating response patterns. Subject continues communication attempts despite established futility. High stress tolerance compared to others. Jaiwu realized with horror that they considered her pleas to be an interesting research variable. Nothing more. As the neural scanner touched her temple, Jiwu suddenly heard a distant explosion. The Vrek spun around, chittering rapidly into a communication device. In his hidden location, Gaihun smiled grimly as his sabotage took effect. He had managed to overload a power junction near the Vrek's docking tube. Not enough to damage their ship, but enough to cause confusion. During the chaos, he transmitted a second, more detailed message toward Earth, attaching all the data he had gathered. Whether anyone would receive it, he couldn't know. 3 days later, Earth's nearest outpost picked up the faint signal from the Horizon asterisk. As officials watched the horrific footage, orders were already being sent for a rescue mission. No one realized they were seeing only the beginning of a conflict that would change humanity forever. On the Horizon asterisk, Jiwu was now the only crew member the Vrek considered worth keeping alive. Her resilience had made her valuable in their studies. She didn't know that Gaihun was still alive, hiding and gathering intelligence. She didn't know her message had reached Earth. All she knew was that humans had encountered something terrible among the stars, and somehow she had to survive to warn them. The Vrek, confident in their superiority, never considered that their act of cruelty would soon awaken a sleeping giant. They had studied many species before, and none had posed any threat once subjugated. Humans would be no different, they believed. They were wrong. Admiral Hyunwoo stood still as stone while the recording played. His face showed no emotion, but his hands were tight fists at his sides. On the large screen, Dr. Ji-woo Kim's bloody face told the horrible story of what had happened to the Horizon and its crew. When the recording ended, no one spoke for several long seconds. The only sound in the United Earth Defense Council chamber was the soft hum of air systems. Council Chairwoman Minna Lee finally broke the silence. Her voice was quiet but firm. "How long until this reaches the public?" Communications Director Sung Ho looked up from his tablet. "It's already public, Madam Chairwoman." The footage was automatically sent to civilian networks under the Transparency Act. Admiral Hyunwoo nodded to his assistant, who handed small computers to each council member. "My team has prepared several options for our response. The closest battle group can reach the Horizon last known location in 3 days. General Du Yun frowned deeply. "Sending a rescue now would be foolish. We need to gather our forces first, before we face an enemy we know nothing about." Chairwoman Minna shook her head firmly. "We will not abandon our people, General. Admiral Hyunwoo will lead a small force to investigate while you begin preparing all our military resources. The military has been at peace for 80 years, Fleet Commander Soo-jin reminded everyone. Most of our ships are for exploration or trade, not war. "Then change them," ordered Minna with a sharp edge to her voice. "Our engineers will find a way. Humanity has had peace for many years, but we have not forgotten how to fight." Outside on the streets of New Seoul, the public reaction was immediate and powerful. Massive screens on buildings showed Ji-woo's bloody face and her desperate message. People stopped walking to watch, many crying openly. "Those monsters," whispered a young woman to her friend. "What have we done to deserve this?" By nightfall, lines formed outside military recruitment centers across Earth and its colonies. Young men and women waited for hours for the chance to sign up. "I've never thought about joining the military before," said Q1, a university student waiting in line. "But after seeing what they did to our people, someone has to fight back." In factories that had made household items and luxury goods for decades, managers received urgent government messages. By morning, engineers were already redesigning production lines to make weapons and military equipment. At the Kim family home in a quiet suburb, silence filled the living room as they watched Jiwoo's face on their screen. Her mother, Sunhai, couldn't stop crying. Her younger brother, Minho, sat in shock. Jiwoo's father, retired engineer Jae-sun Kim, wiped tears from his eyes. Then he reached for his tablet computer. "What are you doing, Dad?" Minho asked, finding his voice. "Sending my old weapon designs to the Defense Ministry," Jae-sun answered grimly. "Your sister's suffering will not be for nothing." Sunhai looked up. "Weapon designs, but you've always worked on peaceful technology." Jae-sun's face hardened. "Before I designed spacecraft engines, I worked on defense systems during the Mars conflict. I kept working on some ideas over the years. I never thought we would need them." In the highest levels of government, emergency sessions continued through the night. Defense Minister Hansol arrived with reports from military leadership. "How quickly can we have a rescue force ready?" asked Chairwoman Minna. "The scout cruiser Swift Justice can be ready in 48 hours with a small team of our best special forces," Admiral Hyunwoo answered. "I will command personally." "That's too risky for someone of your rank," General Du Yun objected. "I knew those people," Admiral Hyunwoo said quietly. "Captain Park was my student at the academy. I recommended him for the Horizon mission." Minna nodded slowly. "Very well, Admiral. But your mission is reconnaissance and rescue only. No engagement unless absolutely necessary." At the Central Military Hospital, Dr. Youngmei studied the medical data from Jiwoo's transmission. "The alien's biology seems to be insect-like, based on what we can see in the background. Their atmosphere might contain more nitrogen than ours." "Could that be useful?" asked her colleague. Youngmei nodded slowly. "If we understand their biology, we might find vulnerabilities. Every species has weaknesses." At the Space Force Academy, Instructor Bo Min showed the cadets footage from the Horizon attack. "This changes everything about how we prepare you. From this moment, all training will focus on combat readiness." One cadet raised her hand. "Sir, most of us joined to explore space, not to fight wars." Bowman's face softened slightly. "I understand. I joined for the same reason. But sometimes we don't choose our battles. They choose us." In orbit around Earth, shipyard crews worked around the clock. The passenger liner Pacific Dream was having its luxury cabins torn out to make room for weapon systems and troop quarters. "We can convert about 60% of the civilian fleet within 2 months, reported Fleet Engineer Dong-hyuk. "It won't be pretty, but they'll fight." "What about actual warships?" asked Admiral Hyunwoo. "The old Mars Defense Fleet vessels are being reactivated. They're outdated, but it's a start." At sunrise, Admiral Hyunwoo stood at the window of his office, watching the activity in the shipyards below. His aide entered with a tablet. "Sir, the Special Forces team is assembled. And this just came in. Another transmission from the Horizon *. The Admiral's head snapped around. "From Dr. Kim?" "No, sir. It's from Senior Engineer Guyon. He's been hiding on the ship, gathering intelligence on the aliens. They call themselves the Vrek." For the first time in hours, hope sparked in Hyunwoo's eyes. "Show me." The tablet displayed a weak but clear message. "This is Senior Engineer Guyon. I'm alive in Section 12B of the Horizon *. Dr. Kim is also alive but captured. The Vrek are studying us like lab animals. I've attached technical data on their ship and weapons. They don't know I'm here. Please hurry." "This changes everything," Hyunwoo said. "We now have someone on the inside." Within hours, the Swift Justice departed Earth orbit with Admiral Hyunwoo and 20 elite soldiers. Their mission had now become even more critical, not just to rescue, but to secure the intelligence that might save humanity. As the Swift Justice accelerated to full speed, Admiral Hyunwoo looked at the faces of his small crew. None of them had ever seen combat. Neither had he. but the determination in their eyes told him everything he needed to know. The Vrek had awakened something they couldn't possibly understand: humanity's absolute refusal to abandon their own. Commander Jinho stood on the bridge of the battleship Vengeance and looked out at the busy shipyards around Earth. Just 6 months ago, these same construction platforms had built cruise ships for vacations. Now they made warships at an amazing speed. "It's hard to believe," said Commander Yuna as she joined him at the window. "Those are the same engineers who used to build pleasure ships." Jinho nodded. "When we need to, we change quickly." The communication panel made a sound. Jinho pressed a button to answer. "Commander, Admiral Hyunwoo's ships have returned from their mission," said the voice. "They found survivors, not just humans, but other aliens who were captured by the Vrek." Jinho's heart beat faster. The Admiral's small fleet had left 3 months ago, hoping to find any trace of the Horizon and its crew. That they had returned with survivors was better news than anyone had dared hope for. "Tell them we're coming to help," Jinho replied. "Prepare medical teams." 2 days later, Jinho sat in the big meeting hall where Earth's leaders gathered to hear from the rescued aliens. 3 different species sat at the front table, each looking nothing like humans. One had scales like a lizard, another had blue skin and 4 arms, and the third looked like a tall plant with eyes. The lizard-like alien, named Rilta, spoke through a translation device. "My people have suffered under Vrek control for over 200 years. They attack without warning and take over planets. They kill most of us during first contact, keeping only enough for study and slave work." The room was quiet as everyone took in this terrible news. "Your people are lucky," Rilta continued. "Usually the Vrek destroy any ships that send messages home. They want to surprise each new species they find." Admiral Hyunwoo stepped to the front of the room. He looked tired but determined. "We found the Horizon at a Vrek research station. We rescued 12 prisoners, including Dr. Ji-woo Kim and Engineer Ga-eun." Jinho felt relief wash over him. Dr. Kim had become a symbol of human suffering at Vrek hands. Her survival would lift spirits across Earth. "Dr. Kim is very weak but alive," Admiral Hyunwoo continued. "She and Ga-eun gave us important information about Vrek biology and technology. We also rescued Engineer Hejun, who was studying Vrek weapons while pretending to be unconscious. At the Sahara Innovation Center, now called the Advanced Weapons Facility, Engineer Hejun showed a group of military officials his new invention. His left arm was missing below the elbow, replaced with a simple metal hand. His face had several scars, but his eyes were bright with purpose. "The Vrek think their shields cannot be broken," Hejun explained. "But while they studied us, I studied them. Their attack on the Horizon used a special energy beam. I've built a similar weapon that can cut through their shields." He pressed a button, and a screen showed a simulation of his weapon firing at a Vrek ship. The beam cut through the shield like it wasn't there. "The Vrek have used the same technology for centuries because no one has challenged them," Hejun said. "They don't innovate because they don't need to. That's their weakness." Minister of Defense Jun Seo nodded slowly. "How soon can we build these weapons?" "We've already started," Hejun replied. "The first ones will be ready next week." At a training center in New Seoul, Cadet Mireille practiced fighting moves with 20 other young recruits. Their teacher was a small woman who moved with quick, certain steps. "The Vrek have 6 limbs and can strike from multiple angles," the teacher explained. "But they have poor balance. Their joints bend this way." She moved her arm in demonstration. "Which means they have weak spots here and here." Mireille practiced the moves again and again until they became natural. 6 months ago, she had been studying art history. Now she trained to fight aliens. "Why do we have to learn hand-to-hand combat?" asked another cadet. "Won't we be fighting in ships?" The teacher's face grew serious. "We hope so. But if the Vrek reach Earth, we must be ready to fight them on the ground too." That night, Mireille couldn't sleep. She got up and went to the roof of the training center. Looking up at the stars, somewhere out there, the Vrek were still hurting people like Dr. Kim. The thought made her angry and afraid at the same time. She heard footsteps and turned to see Commander Jinho, who sometimes came to check on the new recruits. "Trouble sleeping, cadet?" he asked. Mireille nodded. "I'm worried we won't be ready in time." Jinho looked up at the stars too. 6 months ago, we had no warships, no weapons that could hurt the Vrek, and no idea how to fight them. Now we have all three. "But the Vrek have been fighting wars for centuries," Mireille said. Jinho smiled slightly. "Yes, but they've been winning easily for so long. They've grown lazy. They think they're better than everyone else. That's their greatest weakness." In a hospital room, Dr. Ji-woo Kim slowly opened her eyes. Her body was thin and weak, with scars that would never fully heal. But her mind was sharp as ever. "How long was I gone?" she asked the doctor, checking her vital signs. 8 months, the doctor replied gently. "Admiral Hyunwoo brought you home 3 weeks ago. You've been unconscious." Jae-woo tried to sit up, but couldn't. "I need to tell them what I learned about the Vrek. Their weaknesses." "You already did," the doctor said, gently pushing her back onto the pillow. "You spoke to Admiral Hyunwoo during lucid moments on the journey home. Your information has been extremely valuable." Jae-woo relaxed slightly. "What's happening now?" "Earth is preparing for war," the doctor said simply. "Your message changed everything. We're building ships, weapons, and training soldiers. We've made alliances with other species who hate the Vrek." Jae-woo closed her eyes. "I didn't want war. We were explorers." "I know," the doctor said softly. "But the Vrek didn't give us a choice." That evening, Commander Jinho received new orders. The Vengeance would lead the first attack fleet to a Vrek outpost. Their mission: free the slaves and destroy the base. As he read the details, Jinho felt both fear and determination. Humanity had been peaceful for generations. Now they would show the Vrek that attacking Earth had been the worst mistake they ever made. On his desk sat a picture of the Horizon crew, taken before their fateful mission. Jinho looked at their smiling faces and made a silent promise. The Vrek would pay for what they had done. Captain Mireille led her team through the dark halls of the Vrek research station. They wore special suits that changed color like octopuses on Earth, making them nearly invisible to Vrek eyes and sensors. "I see life signs ahead," whispered Lieutenant Junseo, looking at his small scanner. "Many different species. I think we found where they keep prisoners." Mireille used hand signals to direct her team. "Remember what we came to do. Free the prisoners, get information, and place the bombs. The main fleet will attack the military base in 20 minutes." When they reached the door, Mireille held her breath as it slid open. Inside were rows of small cells. The smell hit her first, a mix of fear, pain, and hopelessness. In the cells, creatures of different shapes and sizes looked up with dull eyes. Mireille had trained for this moment for months, but seeing the reality of Vrek cruelty still shocked her. She pushed her feelings aside and focused on the mission. Team 1, start freeing prisoners. Team 2, download data from their computers. Team 3, set the charges, she ordered quietly. As her soldiers moved through the room, Mireille checked each cell. Most held aliens she had never seen before. Some cried out when they saw humans. Others were too weak to respond. In one of the last cells, Mireille found a thin human woman. Her body was covered in scars, and she looked nothing like the healthy scientist in the files Mireille had studied. But it was her. "Dr. Kim, Ji-woo Kim," Mireille asked gently. The woman's eyes opened wider. "Earth came." "We came," Mireille said, carefully helping her sit up. "And we brought a fleet." Dr. Kim started to cry. "They said no one would come. That Earth would forget us. "We never forgot," Mayray said, giving her water from a small bottle. "Your message changed everything. Can you walk?" Dr. Kim tried to stand but couldn't. Mayray called a medic over, who gave Dr. Kim a quick injection for pain and strength. "What about the others?" "Gai-hun?" Dr. Kim asked. Mayray's face grew sad. "Engineer Gai-hun was rescued months ago. He helped us plan this mission." "Thank goodness," Dr. Kim whispered. Lieutenant Jun Seo approached. "Captain, we've freed all prisoners and downloaded their research data. The charges are set. 10 minutes until detonation." Mayray nodded. "Let's move out. I'll carry Dr. Kim." Outside the research station, 3 transport ships waited, hidden by the same technology that concealed the strike team. The rescued prisoners were loaded quickly, many needing medical help. Mayray activated her communication device. "Admiral, this is Ground Team Alpha. Mission accomplished. All prisoners secured. Returning to fleet." "Good work, Captain," came Admiral Hyunwoo's voice. "We're about to begin the main attack." High above the Vrek colony world, Admiral Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the flagship Horizon's Justice *. Around him, crew members waited for his command. The bridge was silent except for the soft beeping of instruments. Hyunwoo thought of Dr. Kim and the others who had suffered. He thought of Engineer Hejun who had lost his arm. He thought of all the aliens who had lived under Vrek cruelty for centuries. "All ships," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Commence Operation Reckoning." At that moment, 100 Earth ships appeared out of nowhere, their cloaking technology deactivated. Their weapons were already aimed at Vrek defense stations. The first wave of attacks hit before the Vrek could respond. Phase cannons, based on Engineer Hejun's designs, cut through Vrek shields as if they weren't there. Earth missiles followed, targeting power systems and weapon platforms. On the Vrek command ship, Supreme Commander Kaval couldn't believe the reports coming in. "Impossible," he said, his mouthparts clicking rapidly. "The humans are just test subjects. They can't have this technology." His second-in-command showed him a screen with battle data. "They are using weapons similar to ours, but improved. And look, the slave species are fighting too. They're rising up all over the colony." Indeed, as the human attack began, thousands of aliens who had been forced to work for the Vrek suddenly turned on their masters. They had been secretly organized by human agents over the past months, waiting for this moment. Tuval watched in horror as his perfectly ordered world fell apart. "Call for reinforcements from the home fleet." "Communications are down," his officer reported. The humans targeted those first. Back on the research station, the Vrek guards were confused. Alarms sounded everywhere. Prisoners were missing. Strange explosions happened at the defense posts overhead. Senior researcher Kilat hurried to the high-security cell where they kept the human female. He needed to protect their most valuable test subject. The cell was empty. A small device on the floor beeped faster and faster. Kilat had just enough time to recognize it as a bomb before it exploded. Throughout the station, similar devices detonated in perfect sequence. The research center that had caused so much pain collapsed in flames. On the transport ship, Mayray watched through a viewing port as explosions ripped through the station. Beside her, Dr. Kim also watched, her face showing no emotion. "Are you okay?" Mayray asked. Dr. Kim was quiet for a long moment. "I spent 8 months in that place. I watched my friends die there." She turned to Mayray. "I should feel happy to see it destroyed, but mostly, I just feel tired." Mayray nodded. "We'll get you home. You can rest." The battle for the Vrek colony world lasted only 3 hours. The Vrek, used to easy victories, had no plan for a surprise attack. Their weapons, unchanged for centuries, couldn't match the new Earth technology based on their own designs but improved. By the time Vrek reinforcements arrived from the next system, the colony was under human control. The slaves had been freed, the Vrek either captured or killed. It was the first human victory against the Vrek. It would not be the last. On his command ship, now damaged and retreating, Supreme Commander Kaval tried to understand what had happened. How did they advance so quickly? He asked no one in particular. It should have taken them centuries to develop these weapons. His second-in-command answered anyway. They learned from us, and they had something we didn't expect. What? Motivation, the officer said simply. We attacked them without reason. They had every reason to fight back. As his ship limped away, Kaval received reports of attacks on 11 other Vrek outposts. All had been hit at exactly the same time. All had fallen. For the first time in his long life, Kaval felt fear. The Vrek had ruled space unchallenged for so long that they had forgotten what it was like to face a real enemy. Now they faced humanity, and humanity was angry. 2 years had passed since humans first struck back against the Vrek. Now, a massive fleet of ships from Earth and its alien allies surrounded the Vrek home planet. This was the final battle of a war that had changed the galaxy forever. On the bridge of the flagship Horizon's Justice Admiral Hyunwoo looked at the battle plans with his officers. The ship was named after the research vessel whose crew had suffered so terribly at Vrek hands. Their defenses are strong, said Fleet Commander Soo-jin, pointing to the glowing map. But we found 3 weak spots we can attack. Dr. Ji-woo Kim stood with them. Once a prisoner of the Vrek, she was now healthy again and served as the top advisor on Vrek matters. The scars on her face and arms were still visible, but her eyes showed strength, not pain. The Vrek have a strict chain of command, Dr. Kim explained, pointing to the map. If we can take out their leaders, the rest won't know what to do. They cannot think for themselves in battle. Admiral Hyunwoo nodded. That will be our main target. Captain Maire's Special Forces will lead that attack. Captain Maire, who had rescued Dr. Kim 2 years earlier, checked her weapons. Her team of 20 soldiers would slip onto the Vrek command station, while the main battle distracted the defenders. We'll get it done, sir, she promised. The battle began at dawn, Earth time. Thousands of ships moved into position. The Vrek launched their defenses, filling space with energy beams and missiles. The first wave of Earth ships took heavy damage. The Vrek thought they were winning, but this was just the beginning of Admiral Hyunwoo's plan. While the Vrek focused on the main attack, smaller, faster ships slipped through their lines. These ships carried soldiers from Earth and a dozen allied worlds. Each group had a specific target. Supreme Commander Kaval watched the battle from his command center. He had survived the first human attacks 2 years ago. Since then, he had lost battle after battle as humans pushed deeper into Vrek space. They cannot win, he told his officers. Our homeworld defenses are too strong. No enemy has ever reached this far. What Kaval didn't know was that Captain Maire and her team were already inside his station. They moved silently through air ducts and maintenance tunnels, avoiding Vrek patrols. The command center is 50 meters ahead. Lieutenant Jun Seo whispered, checking his scanner. Maire signaled her team forward. They had trained for this mission for months, studying maps provided by freed slaves. In space, the battle grew more intense. Human ships used quick, unexpected moves that confused the Vrek. Ships from the Ashtari Confederation, whose people had suffered under Vrek rule for centuries, attacked with special weapons designed to disrupt Vrek shields. The Vrek began to lose control of the battle. Their rigid battle plans couldn't adapt to human tactics that changed minute by minute. Something is wrong, Kaval chittered to his second-in-command. The humans aren't following normal battle patterns. At that moment, the doors to his command center exploded inward. Maire and her team burst through, firing weapons that stunned rather than killed. Secure the room, Maire ordered. Within seconds, Kaval and his officers were captured. The command center that controlled all Vrek defenses was in human hands. Maire activated her communicator. Admiral, we have control of the command center. Kaval is captured. Excellent work, Admiral Hyunwoo replied. Begin the shutdown sequence. Throughout the Vrek defense network, weapons and shields began to power down as Mirai's team executed the carefully planned cyber attack. The fighting didn't stop immediately, but without coordination from Central Command, the Vrek forces fell into chaos. 2 hours later, Admiral Hyunwoo, Dr. Kim, and Captain Mirai stood in the Vrek command center. Supreme Commander Kaval sat before them, his multiple limbs bound. You will now surrender all Vrek forces, Admiral Hyunwoo stated firmly. The war is over. Kaval's eye stalks swiveled toward Dr. Kim. You, he chittered in surprise. The test subject from the research vessel. You should have died. Dr. Kim stepped forward, her face calm. I nearly did, as did many others at your hands. You were just animals to study, Kaval said. How did you defeat us? We ruled this sector for 1,000 years. You were an experiment in human determination, Dr. Kim replied coldly. You failed to understand what your cruelty would awaken. We were peaceful explorers. You turned us into warriors. 1 year after the final battle, representatives from 37 different species gathered on a neutral space station. After centuries of Vrek domination, the galaxy was free. Leaders had come together to sign the Galactic Covenant, an agreement of peace and cooperation. At the center of the Grand Meeting Hall stood a beautiful memorial. It was shaped like the Horizon Asterisk, the research ship whose crew had suffered and died. Their names were written in glowing letters that could be read in any language. Dr. Ji-woo Kim, now Earth's ambassador to the new Galactic Council, placed her hand on the cool surface where her friends' names were written. Captain Park, Lieutenant Taeho, and all the others who never came home. A single act of cruelty awakened humanity's war machine, she said quietly. But what we built from that awakening will ensure peace for generations to come. Behind her, the leaders of many worlds watched respectfully. Some had been slaves just 3 years earlier. Now they were free, thanks to humanity's response to a single act of cruelty. Among the crowd stood Captain Mirai, now General Mirai. She watched Dr. Kim with respect and wonder. The scientist had survived unimaginable horror and helped lead her people to victory. Was it worth it? Asked Commander Jun Seo, standing beside Mirai. All the fighting, all the lives lost. Mirai thought for a moment. We didn't start this war, but we ended it in a way that brought freedom to billions. Yes, it was worth it. As the ceremony ended, Dr. Kim looked up through the station's clear dome at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, the original Horizon Asterisk still drifted in space, a silent witness to both the terrible cruelty and the amazing courage that thinking beings were capable of. The Vrek had wanted to study humanity. In the end, they had taught humanity something about itself, that when pushed too far, humans would fight with everything they had. But when victory came, they would build peace rather than seek revenge. That was the real legacy of the Horizon Asterisk and its brave crew. Not war, but the peace that followed. The end.